So, today we're going to talk about how art combats shame. This is connected to the last series that I talked about on integrating the self. Well, as some of you might know, using art is a way of exposing or illuminating those darkest parts. Why? Because shame initially has been used in a way to control, whether it's people or control groups. And you could see this culturally in many cultures, the way that shame is expressed in order to control someone. This can be done by tactics of shunning or ostracizing from a particular group. So basically, letting that individual know that they do not belong to the group. And if you've been or have experienced this, you very well know how hard it might get or how challenging it might be to feel stuck in a place where you know that your internal driver and your inner voice is telling you that you need to move, you need to align yourself to situations or conditions that are going to serve your happiness and your joy. But sometimes, in order to keep with the status quo or the norm, or maybe there's a cultural, collective understanding of how you're supposed to be expressing yourself or performing in a society or in a specific cultural group. A basis of this is that when shame is introduced, it's a means or a tactic to keep someone under control so as to not veer off or create their unique path, way of controlling this individual in, you know, the the thought that this individual might embarrass the whole. This can be seen in cultural groups, religious groups, family groups. So if this certain individual is posing a specific threat socially to a group, they will be shamed in many ways. And one of that this can be employed is through shunning or silencing or giving that cold shoulder and basically not engaging with this person. The more that that's done, they are pushed out into the outskirts and essentially being shown through nonverbal means that they are no longer belonging to this group or to this whole, right? This collective. And so that can create a tear in the person's identity, basically overriding and going against what their instinctive, their authentic nature is saying in order to appease a collective. Now, again, everything has to be in balance. Yeah. But one of the beautiful medicines that art brings is to be able to integrate those experiences, especially for someone that has experienced that. And choosing to channel that in the intensity of that experience into art versus restructuring it and channeling it into an emotion or an action, right? That could potentially put them in a place of conflict with this collective or this group. So a good example of that is feeling anger, right? Which is justified because a boundary has been crossed. I am no longer belonging to this group. Therefore, the emotion that comes up is anger. But if I consciously or subconsciously choose to use this anger to enact violence now in this group, that is a form of energy or emotion being channeled in a destructive form. The antidote to that is art, because that experience, that emotional experience, the intensity of being shunned and ostracized, still needs to be validated within that person. But instead of directing that anger or directing that energy towards the collective or creating conflict, it can be channeled into art to explore it, to diffuse it, to as they say, like you have the kettle with the water boiling up, bringing the level or the temperature of that water down so that that can be explored, that emotion can be diffused, and then from there, one can take the action that needs to be taken, but from a more neutral space while both uh, acknowledging and recognizing the intensity of or the marks of trauma that that situation can leave behind, and at the same time redirecting that intensity so that it doesn't create more uh, hurt, more pain. Yeah. And so this is one of the reasons why art is such a medicine, especially when we're talking about shame.